Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Kim with Lolly Doodle Studios. Welcome into the studio. We are going to paint our paint along watercolor kit here, the Cocoa Season Trio. We're going to paint the one that is in the little red mug with the peppermint stick today. So this video, it'll walk you step by step through the process. So please just relax. I want you to paint at your own pace. If you are catching this video and you do not yet have a kit, you'd like to get one, you can find links to order it, along with my favorite supplies and links to videos 2 and 3 below in the description box. So let's get started. Now in your kit, you'll find, I'm using a bigger one so that you can see it on screen. You may have, depending on what size kit you ordered, it's, you know, you're still going to paint the same way, just bigger or smaller. And now, so as I said, we've got our little sample here of the red kit. So inside we've got our pre-printed papers and our confetti paint cards. Now, your confetti paint sampler will look like this, and it will have dots of paint in here that will coordinate with the kit that you are working on. So we're going to go ahead and work on this kit. Remember, your art is yours. You can feel free to change up colors and do things in your way, and promise me that you will not judge your work based on mine. The most important part of this is that you relax and have fun. So I'm going to start off with my brush, and I'm just going to wet it. I've got my 2 cups of water. Inside of your kit, there is also, you'll see the practice. Let's see if I have one handy. You will see a practice paper, practice the basics, and the link to watch that is also in the description box, but it should also be in your kit. That way, if you are starting with no knowledge of watercolor at all, that video will help you to feel a little bit more comfortable and get started. So I'm going to work a lot with what we call wet on wet. So I'm just going to take water on my brush, good bit of water. I just got a big, oh, I got a dog hair here. I'm just going to take a good bit of water, and I am just going to fill in the whipped cream part of my template. So I'm just taking water on my brush and filling in that whole area where the whipped cream is at. Okay. Just take your time. You don't necessarily want to see big puddles of water, but you want to see like a sheen on the paper. So you want it to kind of sparkle, but not puddle, right? Make your paper sparkle, not puddle. So I filled that in pretty well. The paper is soaking it in pretty quickly, and that is okay. Now I'm going to take some of the off-white that I have. You'll find that on your confetti card, and I'm going to take this in here now, and I am just going to touch it just around different areas of the whipped cream, right? I'm not doing the whole thing. Where it's wet, the paint will flow, right? So when we went in and we wet our whipped cream area, where the paper is still wet, where you see that sheen, it is going to go ahead and blend on its own. I am going to come back in with a little bit more of the darker shade of that, like with a little bit more paint on my brush, and tap that around the bottom of that whipped cream. And I can pull it also right down this area of the cup where the whipped cream is kind of spilling over. Now, if you get a little too wet with that, it's not a big deal. Dry your brush off, clean it off, grab a or dry paper towel, and you want to tap your brush on it just like that. And then it can come in and lift some of that color off with that damp brush. It's almost like mopping up dirt off the floor. I mean, I know our paintings are not dirt on a floor, but it's the same. It will pull that up with the brush. So with watercolor, and like I said, you can go in, you can move paint around. You can, let's see, maybe we can take a little bit of green and a little bit of red from our kit, and I can make a little bit of a brown color. We can make brown by mixing those two. It's a little bit of a reddish brown. I want to dull it just a bit. Maybe I'll grab some burnt umber in there. And I want to just come in. It's starting to dry, but it's still pretty wet. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is still a good sheen on that paper. And I want to just come in and drop. That was way too much, right? So see, mistakes do happen even on my end. I'm going to show you. I'm going to dry this really, really quickly so that we can then move on. I'm going to dry it just a bit. So you could also do that as well, or just pause your video from time to time to give your paper time to dry, or give yourself time to catch up. So let me just dry that really quickly. I don't want it all the way dry, but I don't want... Remember, the thing, like we keep saying with watercolor, is that wherever there is water, wherever there is puddles, the color will flow there. So that was just way too wet. And I can drop some of this darker brown along those lines where the folds of the whipped cream would be. So I'm creating a little bit of shadow. You don't necessarily need to go this dark, but you go as dark as you want, because this is also, it's not meant to be perfect. We can come down and leave a nice shadow on this side of our whipped cream. So I'm kind of looking at our sample. I know it's small, but I'm looking at our sample, and you can see, you know, it's cocoa. It's going to be brown in there. And just want to build that color up slowly. If that's a little too dark, wet your brush again, dry it off, and you can come in and soften some of that color a bit and just pull it around some more. So I'm just tapping and letting it move. And breathing and relaxing. It's not meant to be super duper stressful. So I'm going to grab my brush and give it a good bit of water. Remember, we've got that brown there. And if we look at the peppermint stick, it's red and white, but the white is also kind of, it's got a brownish tint to it. So I'm going to fill in just the areas of the candy cane that are meant to be white. So white, red, and now I'll go in here and I'm just filling that in lightly with water. That's all I've got there. I can fill in this one. And if I touch where the hot cocoa is and it's still wet, those colors will bleed, right? So give that a quick shot with your dryer, or give it some time to dry just a bit. It doesn't have to be completely dry, but just make sure, you know, you don't necessarily want the whole candy cane turning brown. So I'm going to come in, and you'll see, if you look close, just right around the edges of those areas that I just painted. And you might not even be able to pick this up on the camera, but I'm just tapping in some of that khaki color and then just a tiny little bit of that brown that we mixed up. We just want to add a little bit of interest or shading to the peppermint stick. We don't necessarily want it just to be the white of the paper, right? But we want to make sure we're adding lots of water to the paint so that we can see through. We want to get that nice see-through look while we're painting. We want that nice see-through look for the white of the paper to come out. I'm going to hit this with the dryer really quickly. Work on the mug, so I want to make sure anything that might be touching the mug is dry so that they don't all bleed together. Okay, so I am going to take, I like to work wet on wet, and if you look here, there's quite a few layers. There's like a very light red, there's like a medium darkness of red, then we've got some really dark red more to this side of the cup. So what we're going to do is, remember, the white of the paper is our white when we're working with watercolor, but we don't have to leave it perfectly white. So I'm going to come in here with my wet brush, and just like I did for the whipped cream, I'm going to just work pretty quickly. I'm not going to do the handle just yet. I'm just going to work on the cup. And I'm going to fill that in. Again, we want to see that nice sheen that the paper is wet, but we don't necessarily want to see puddles. We want to shine, 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 not so much leave puddles behind. Okay, my watch is telling me it's time to stand. We are not going to stand while we are painting. So I'm going to wet some of this nice bright, like a warm red, and I want to bring some of it over here. But I want to make sure there's a good bit of water there. We can always test this off too. So like your extra sheets of paper, I like to keep little extras here nearby. You've also got the piece that came with the kit for you to practice on. You can test your colors to see, like, that's nice and see-through, but if it looked like that, I wouldn't want to use that as my first layer. We want to go for that really soft see-through look over here. And remember, we did wet the cup, so we do already have water there. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to just fill this cup in, and you'll see if I just push it with my brush, it's got a lot of water in there, so that color is traveling nicely across the page. So I'm just pulling that around. You can see how I'm just pulling the brush, and the paint, I'm not trying to get that paint to be think about like when you're painting with acrylics, or if you've colored, you go for like one flat shade. We don't really want that with water. We want to let the watercolor mix and play and do what it does, right? Because that's what makes watercolor so interesting and so inviting. And I'm just going to hit around the edges of that cup. I'm just going to give it a couple seconds to let it soak into the paper a bit, right? So you see we've got our first layer on, and we've got this part here of the cup. We want to leave that really light red. So I'm going to take, you've got these colors on your confetti card. You can mix these on your confetti card as well. I'm grabbing some of that warm red, which is almost like an orange. But now I'm going to come over here and grab some of that cool red, and I'm going to add some of that together. So I'm going to mix some of the warm and the cool and make a little bit of a darker shade. but it's, you know, I'm adding more depth to it. So I'm going to come, this is not dry all the way, but there's no puddles. I'm going to stick right close to the edge of the cup. I'm going to drop my brush and pull it down the side of that mug, and I'm going to go all the way down. I want to make nice big long paint strokes. And I'm going to take my brush and just kind of wiggle it back and forth here. Where it's wet, it's still going to travel, okay? I'm going to leave a little bit there as well, because if you look here, there's just a bit of a highlight there under that whipped cream. So I can fill in my cup pretty well. I'm not going real slow and coloring in every single piece of that paper. I've got some of the white of the paper showing through. We want to leave some of that also, right? And it doesn't have to be solid. We want to pull that paint, swish it. We just don't want to scrub our paper. We just want to pull that paint and water lightly around the mug, right? So we've got a nice little mug there. Went out of the lines a little bit, but it's okay. It's your painting. You can come out of the lines. You don't have to stay perfectly in the lines. As you'll see down here below the cup, that's a beautiful way to use watercolor, is to bring that down and bring it outside of the lines on purpose. Use water and let that move around the page, right? So you see what I did there? I just pulled that color and brought it out. Now, I'm going to go in now again with my darker shade of red. So I'm going to grab a good bit more of that. I'm going to grab a good bit more of that warm red, or that cool red, and I may grab just a little touch of a blue, which will make this might have went too purple. Let's see. Well, it's a nice dark shade, and I'm going to come, while this is wet, this is the fun part of wet on wet, and you can practice more wet on wet by practicing that the basics practice again, wet on wet, wet on dry. Make sure you check out that video if you're not completely understanding exactly what I'm saying. But I am pulling that really dark purplish red down my cup. And if it's too much, I'm going to just stop a little. I'm going to clean my brush. We can clean the brush, and we can come in here now with that clean, softened brush. We can pull some of that color off. You'll see how I'm just tapping it over here onto my brush. So it's just a little bit too wet. I'm going to let that come underneath of the cup as well. But where it's wet and I touch it with that, it will spread across the paper. So we're just using that purple to make a little bit of a shadow on our cup. I'm tapping, I'm just wiggling it a little bit, but I want that dark, see? And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can come over and grab some more red, add some more red into that. If you don't like the purple, you can just use the darker red, or even a gray or a black. This is just going to add some shadow around the cup. And I'm going to leave that be and let it dry. So I'm going to come back now, and remember we have the handle. I'm going to work on the handle the same way. So I'm going to come in with just water on my brush. Absolutely just water. And I am going to wet the curve of the brush. I'm going to wet the curve of the handle. If you look closely, the inside part of the handle is darker than this outside part. So that would be, we would work very lightly with the warm red, with lots of water to make sure that it's transparent. okay? And it's not going to take much. Remember, just stop and test your colors off on the paper. Make sure that they are, you know, transparent enough. And because the paper is wet, we're painting wet paint on wet paper. It's going to bleed. It will travel along the paper. So I'm going to pull it all the way down. I'm going to leave that be just for a minute. Remember, we want to let the paper dry just a little bit. Now, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to come up here and do the red of my peppermint. So I'm just going to fill that in with that see-through bit, that see-through paint that we just used for the mug, that light red. Okay, so I'm just filling that in. I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to hit it with the dryer. It's going to dry it a bit, but it won't dry it completely. I want to get rid of that puddle look that I have. The thing with watercolor, start with the light color and then work your way darker. Work your way to the darker. So remember, we added a little bit of that cool red to the warm red in order to make the medium darkness of the red. So I'm going to leave that edge and just bring that down. And I can tap it, leave some of that white space. Don't worry about filling everything in perfectly. Okay, you can also come back over in here again now that that's drying, and you can add a little bit more. So I'm adding some of that mid-tone warmer red to this, just to add another layer of color. That's the thing with watercolor. We're layering, and it does not have to be 100% blended. The paper is going to keep blending until it's dry. It's going to keep doing its thing, right? And you'll see here in the example, we do have some splotchiness to it. We do have that fun watercolor look to this. Okay, so we're just going to leave that now. This is still a good bit wet. I'm going to bring some of my warm red, the middle color that we were using. So I'm going to mix some warm red and cool red together over here. And I want to just make sure it's not too dark. So that's a little bit darker than I want. I'll add a little bit of water to it. You can do that in your mixing palette, right? And there's a lot of water there, so I can tap some of that water off right onto my brush, onto my paper towel. So I can come in maybe now and go, I'm going to choose the bottom part of our peppermint stick, and I'm just going to tap along the side and up this bottom part of that red peppermint stick. I'm not filling it in all the way. I'm just adding little bits of color here and there. And I did get a little splotch of red on my paper there. Let's see, we can try and see if we can remove it. So I'm just going to clean my brush really well. Fresh, clean water. And I'll wet that for a second. I'm just going to tap it a little bit with my water and the brush. And I'll take my paper towel and see if I can lift any of that off. I can try it again. The thing with red is a lot of times a staining color, but it's not the end of the world. You will see at the end, we are going to flick red paint on this anyway. So those little mistakes that may happen, don't stress about them. So I'm going to just come in. My brush is slightly damp. I'm just going to pull that color a little bit. And remember that really dark purple I used. I'm just going to bring some of that around the inner part, just right here in the curve of the brush handle. I can tap it, bring it down here. Just follow your sample, or follow your intuition and let the paint flow where you want it to flow. You can add highlights and shadows wherever you feel they might look best. So I'm going to just grab a little bit more of that red with the slightest little bit of that purple. I don't want a lot of purple on this. So I'm going to come up here again and just add that third shade into my peppermint stick. I'm just tapping it here and there. I want that splotchy look. I stick around the edges. And then I can come in, if I want, use the very tip of my brush and just add some little faint red lines in between where the white spaces are. It just makes it look nice and fun, right? We can keep getting this darker and darker. We could use like a black if we really wanted to make that really dark. We could also mix with the red and the green. We could mix the red and the green together to give us a really, so I'm just going to use this kind of like a blackish purple, and I'm just going to pull a little bit more of a shadow underneath of my mug. It's nice and cozy. And please forgive me because I'm a little late in letting you know. I forgot all about this. I'm so happy. Nice and fun and cozy. So this is a YouTube collaboration with Vintage Press Studios. I want you to be able to make sure to check out the whole playlist. I've linked that in the description box below. And this was for cozy for the holidays, and nothing is more cozy in my eyes than a nice mug of hot cocoa for the holidays, right? So I'm going to take that brush. It's got some of that color. I'm going to dip it and pick up a good bit of water. I'm going to hold my hand here. You could use a pencil or the back of another brush, and I'm just going to flick that. I'm going to tap it, and you'll see where there are some spots now on the paper. Let's come over and grab some more of that red. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold it up higher. Tap it. Tap it lightly till you get the hang of it. But you want to see if you like those paint splotches. I do. Just go ahead and feel free to add them into your painting. And this little guy, I'm going to get a little bit more right up here across the whipped cream and just let that color do its thing. Now, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, feel free to pick up the Cocoa Season Trio Kit. There are many other kits available, and also the links for the other 2 cocos that go with this kit. You'll find the link for those when they are available in the description box below. Thanks for painting with me. Have a cozy holiday, and make sure you check out all of the other videos in the playlist. Have a good night.